Bonsoir tout le monde.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this meeting dating there on October 21st. Tonight's focus will be on upcoming expenditures and budget increases, and maybe budget decreases. That could happen too. That would be a surprise, but it does happen. It would be surprising given what we're hearing in the grapevine, but as we do every year, we're always willing to listen and do what's best for our community, and especially for Dieppe, but also always keeping what's happening in the region in mind as well. When the Southeast goes well, or does well, the rest of the province does well as well. All right, so the first presentation tonight is from the CRPA, the Kodiak Regional Policing Authority. So Charles Savoie and Sylvain Thébert are here to make that presentation. So go ahead. The floor is yours.
Not sure I want to hear what he has to say, but go with it anyway.
There we go. Good evening. My name is Don Moore. I'm the chair of the Kodiak Regional Policing Authority, the CRPA, La PRC. And this evening, we want to present to you our proposed budget for 2025. This was passed as a proposed budget by the CRPA a few weeks ago. Last week we presented this to Riverview. This evening of course to you guys, and next week we're going to be presenting to the City of Moncton. You have in front of you the agenda that we're going to go through. I'm not going to say any of that in detail right now. Next slide is just making sure I always remind everybody who we are. CRPA is 12 members of the community. 7 are appointed by the City of Moncton, 2 appointed by the City of Dieppe, 2 appointed by the town of Riverview, and 1 individual is appointed by the province of New-Brunswick, and that person just has to live in one of the 3 municipalities. Happens to be Mr. J.J. Doiron, the government appointed person, lives in Dieppe. To meet the changing needs of the community, the Kodiak Regional RCMP requires an additional $9.3 million. This is a 19.6% increase from the 2024 budget. This includes 17 new members, police officers, and 5 new municipal employees for next year. It's broken down here of the percentages on each category: salary increase for the regular members, police officers, the divisional admin additional costs, 17 new members additional costs, 5 new municipal employees costs, and the new detachment lease. I do want to make a point right now that a few of these things, it's a bit prorated, and we have some calculation to show what it would be for 2026 if everything stayed the same from that perspective. Okay, I'm going to pass it over to Charles Savoie, and we'll go through the budget.
Bonsoir, ça va bien? Je vais reculer d'une diapositive.
I'm going to go back one slide. I just wanted to say that what you're seeing on the screen is that what you're seeing is that the 17 new members is 4.11%, and it will be lower next week. So we're not going to have all of these in January. It'll take 6 or 7 or 8 months for them to arrive. So next year, instead of having this 1.96, it'll be $4.6 million if you call it, include all the weapons, the cars, and things like that. So that's the big difference. So if you decide to go ahead with this, there will be a higher cost than what is indicated this year. But for this year, 2025, this is what the cost would be. So I just wanted to make that clear. So, and you can see from the pie chart here that the new members represent only 5%, and the other figures are parts of the budget that we don't have a lot of control over. So we're going to go through all this, but I just wanted to start with that. So if you remember in 2023, there was a request from the CRPA for 25 new members. And at that point, the Kodiak RCMP found that there wasn't a lot of supporting facts or documents. So at that point, we had decided to prepare a workload and to do an analysis of the workload and to prepare an operational plan. So we had to put money in the budget for that. And we've just completed that work at the end of the summer. So, and we'll be talking about this a bit. So that's the operation plan. There's also the Periville and Taylor report that came out with recommendations. And then within our operational plan, there was also a communications plan that had been identified. And our engagement with the community had been identified as an issue. So that'll be part of our part. So then there's workload analysis and then the staffing plan. And that's what is leading to the increase that was introduced. So, okay, so the Periville and Taylor recommendations, we're going to just go over through this very quickly. So the ones that are, so we did an analysis of the workload. We also wanted a business case as well for the analyses, and so that was done. And we had to make the decision to retain the current RCMP Kodiak Regional Police model in the region. So those three things were done. And then the three last items, I don't know if Mr. Moore wants to speak to these.
So items number 4, 5, and 6 out of the Periville and Taylor reports, the CRPA is continuing to work on these. The feedback process will be conducted in the spring by our Quality of Policing Committee. The one thing that a lot of people have been interested to know, we are in the final stages of hiring an executive director for the CRPA. That's going to help us do our jobs a little bit better as police authority members. So from there.
Finally.
Final stages.
OK. Fait que ça nous apporte un plan d'opération.
Okay, so that brings us to the operational plan. The operational plan is, well, we had hired PwC to do the work. I think they used to be called PricewaterhouseCoopers. But so we had some experts, we did some community engagement, and we used the J division at the national level and in-house resources as well to create this operational plan. So there was a lot of research that was done. We did a jurisdictional survey of what was being done in the Atlantic region and also in the province to compare ourselves. So we wanted to see where we were, and and what came out of the study was that there was population growth. We are one of the fastest growing regions in the country. And we're expecting 7% growth this year. So there's a large amount of population growth. And it solved some problems in terms of, labor force and things like that, but it also brings with it social issues, and it increased rental costs. And so that growth has had a negative impact on people as well. And it's had an effect on the Kodiak Regional Policing Authority as well. Public sentiment, based on what we heard, is that most people find that Kodiak does a good job when it comes to major crime, but they do a lot less. They do a lot less of a good job in terms of property crime, and there are issues with the data as well. And then in terms of the demand for police services, well, the demand is increasing. We're receiving 75% more calls than in the past, in the last 10 years. And that's due to population growth, but also due to the problems that come with population growth. So that's what the PSWC study taught us. So then we thought, okay, well, how are we going to look at and settle these issues? And also communications was something else that we looked at as well. There were issues with communication. So we've hired somebody that helped us and we've made progress, but it's clear that in terms of the 911 and the non-urgent line, there were problems related to client services and customer service, and we've seen them. So we added that to the workload analysis to try to solve those problems. So it's based on what people told us and also the data that we had available to us. I don't know if you wanted to say something, speak to this point, or. Now, if you look at the Kodiak region, these are the top 10 criminal code violations. And most are not serious offenses. Even assault, that's the lowest violation. So they don't involve weapons or injuries. So most of those violations are property crimes or things that are at a lower level. And you see that these crimes are going up a little bit each year, but these are our top 10. Most of the new members that we'll be adding are due to those, or we'll be dealing with those top violations. Now, in our workload analysis, we got a lot of data. So I'll give you an example. So here you can see in the summer, the dates that are in red, that's when we see the most clients. In terms of dispatch calls for service. So, you might think that we get more calls on the weekends, but it's not the case. Some people, get their sheds broken into in the weekend, but then they call us during the week when they notice it. But most of the calls are received in the middle of the week rather than the weekend. Another thing we heard was cop to pop stats. So here we have a table from Statistics Canada, and Kodiak is the second, or is in black, is the bar in black there. So we're much lower than the provincial average and the Canadian average as well. So, but you have to be careful with this. It's difficult to compare cities and the RCMP. It's not as straightforward as that, but it gives you an idea, a good idea. But I mean, it's not enough to present this table and say there's a lack of police service. There's more in it than that. Now, this is criminal code incidents by officer. And so you see Kodiak comes in second. So that means two things. One, we're very busy compared to others. But it can also mean that the way that we score our incidents is different. So it's difficult to say compared with other police departments. So we'll talk a little bit about this crime severity index. Every year the Kodiak region is one of the most hard hit in the region, but basically what you can see is that our members are very busy. All right, this is the crime severity index that I referred to just a few seconds ago. We're above the Canadian and the New Brunswick average, and we're higher than other cities like Montreal and Halifax. But with PWC, we looked at what might be causing that. And so we'll continue to do that work. But I think the crime severity index would be better if we compared ourselves to ourselves rather than comparing ourselves to another city or another police force. It's very difficult to do. But that's one of the KPIs that we'll be using in the future because we want to see that index decrease year over year. Now, when we look at the crime severity index, here are the occurrences that create 60% of our score. So 29.93% is breaking and entering. So that's where we'll be placing people to try to decrease that. In the third column, that's the cumulative weight of each offense. And so the first has much more weight than the other ones, even if there's assault and sexual assault later. So we don't assign the cumulative weight. That's done by StatsCan and Ottawa. So another chart that shows the work that our members do is our violations in comparison to our population. So if you look at the total violations, we're almost so basically Kodiak is busy. And so this is compared to the data, what's happening in the rest of the province. In terms of property crimes, and we know that this is something that we have to take a serious look at. What we can see here is that property crime is very high. Is very high in the Kodiak region. So we really have to focus on that, and that's what our plan intends to do. Disturbing the peace comes with homelessness, and Kodiak is much higher than other forces. And I talked about the crime severity index. So façon de faire des choses comme le fait à Kodiak. Donc, ça fait que ça change. So, même chose pour les méfaits. So, and for mischief, so with Fredericton, St. John, Miramichi, Grand Falls, they only have 1682 infractions in terms of mischief, but at the Kodiak, we have even a higher number than all those other regions combined. So we're very busy here. The last thing that I wanted to talk to you about, and we'll be looking at this. The question is, how do we deal with these issues, and what KPIs can we use to measure our progress? And what will the new members do? Where will we put them? And how are we going to change? How will we change the reality in the Kodiak region? So our staffing plan, as you see here, our plan is 17 in 2025. So the second column is how many people we'll be adding. The second is the budget. That's how many people the Kodiak region will be paying in a budget. ODS, that is, we add a little bit more because there's already, 15% of staff that's on maternity leave or that are ill. So we add that amount just to make sure we have enough. The JDIV, we're part of the RCMP family, so there's some people we don't have to pay for. They're part of the national budget. And then you see the average as well. So in 2028, that is when we would reach the New-Brunswick average. So things can change in the next 3 years, but it's not, what we're looking at is 2025. You might have seen on the news traffic speedometers and or speed cameras. We know that in the coming years that there are things coming that might change the number of people that we have. But in 2025, we're adding 17 people, which will bring us closer to the average. And the national average is very high. And we have a bit of ways to go before we can reach that national average. And that's on a 100,000 population. And now I will let my colleague talk to you about where we plan to put these people over the next 3 years. Thank you. Hello, Your Worship, councillors. So the plan for 2025 is to add 10 police officers in the general investigations section. Now, every time I come to speak to you, I talk about this section. They investigate the most serious and complex cases. It doesn't include murder, but we will assist major crime if the need is there. So the goal is to add 10 officers to that unit to return some of the police officers that have been loaned to us on a temporary basis. So those police officers have been seconded from the patrol to us. So they will be going back to patrol. And that will help with a number of issues that the Kodiak region is experiencing. We also want to add 6 community policing officers as well. So again, community policing, as I repeat on they work with the population, they work with youth, vulnerable people, the homeless. They also go into schools and they act as an intermediary between the RCMP and people in need. So again, we have police officers there that are there temporarily. They're not permanent positions. So this will allow us to replace those individuals, and with the idea of them returning to do patrols. And we also add 1 officer specialized in domestic violence. That officer, whether it's a man or a woman, will focus on serious domestic violence issues. In 2026, the plan is to fill a traffic unit or to staff a traffic unit. And so we're planning on adding 10 officers to that unit. And the idea is to meet the needs of the Kodiak region. And that includes things like, going to accident sites, catching people that are driving under the influence. If there are highways that have to be closed for whatever reason, those officers will go to assist patrol officers. And that the members of this section will also allow the patrol officers to be much more present and to send out more police officers to respond to calls from the community. In 2027, we'd like to add another 2 officers to the traffic unit. So that would make a total unit or total number of 12 officers assigned to that unit. And then we would add 1 more police to the community policing unit. And then we have a new detachment, and we would like to add 4 officers to cell services. So we want to have officers who are always present in cells, rather, to make sure that that our detainees or prisoners are well kept, taken care of. In 2026, the idea is to add 5 officers to the crime reduction unit as well. So when I talk to you at city council meetings, members of this unit work a lot with street offenses, so property theft, property crimes, as was mentioned earlier. So they're a much more proactive unit. They don't wear a uniform. So they're out among the public, and they also deal with people who consume drugs. And they will be looking for people who have arrest warrants as well. And then in 2027, we would like to add 7 officers to complete the serious crime unit section. So that's, when something serious happens and we press a red button and the headquarters comes and helps us, we would like to have that unit here and not have to press that red button. We'd like to be able to deal with those issues, murder-related issues and serious issues on our own.
Puis là, la dernière écran qu'on voit.
At the last screen you're looking at, in 2025, we're going to be at investigational aids. These are civilian members, and we are trying a pilot project this year, or at least we hope to be able to do it if we get approval. And they will be taking the place of officers. Officers will remain outside to do the work they do, provide data. So civilians would do that. So it's a assistance to investigators. We suspect that it would be very beneficial for Kodiak, and it might even keep some, save us some regular members for the second year, because if the pilot project goes well, we think that there will be 1 person per section. It would reduce the number of members that we'll be looking for in 2026 and 27. And if it works the way we think it's going to work. And customer services, I mentioned that a moment ago. This is where we could look at more things, and victim services is one of the recommendations that came out of Portapic to increase victim services, especially after the mass casualty commission were recommended, because there were many families who were affected by that incident. The KPIs, well, we have about 50 of them. This is what we go through in PwC. We reduce the number, of course, and we've chosen a series that we've almost completed, and all the KPIs go with all the various sections that we want, where we want increases. The sections where we had some difficulty, because data was showing us this, and this is where most of our KPIs are found. And we went through the CRP before, but we have a series for the public. We have about 20 to come, how we can show and how we can succeed with those who are public facing. In the detachment, all is going well. By April 1st, we should get the keys. That's what we're being told. And then we'll be updating the computer systems, and security is going to get in, and they will be moving in each of the different sections. It'll take probably from 3 to 4 months. The only section we will come in last is the most difficult one is the 911, because the equipment has to be tested over a period of 4 months before we are able to move. So we'll do that by the end of the year if all goes well. But once again, in this year's budget, the rental for will only begin in April, and next year the rental costs are going to be higher than even this year. So it'll be a little more than 6%. It should be 25% higher than that amount, because we're only there 3 out of the 12 months if we get the keys to the building in April. The only issue we're going to have is with parking. As we had forecast previously, we didn't think that there would be enough parking, and it seems that there won't be enough parking for all the staff, and so we'll have to find solutions for that. Well, the bus doesn't go by there, at least at this point. We'll see if that changes. For the budget highlights, you can see in the last column, the one on the right, you see the characters that are higher. So 7 for 17, we're not going to be paying all of that this year, so it'll be higher next year. And you'll see the other amounts when the last one, which is a recommendation from Periville Taylor, that the CRPA add to, but we have talked a little bit about that this evening. So 19.61% increase, about 5% for new members this year, and the rest will be costs, salary increases, and so on. 2 more slides. Every year, this one where we're talking about the deficit
D'habitude, c'est reporté à 2 ans.
or a surplus, it gets pushed forward by 2 years. So we begin the year with a surplus. However, unfortunately, 2 years ago, we had a deficit. And so this year, we start off in the red, if you will. So that's what it's looking like this year. So if you add to it, normally we don't compare one year to another if there's surplus or deficit, but we put them together to show you what euro costs are going to be for this year. So you'll see in Dieppe, it's 10 million all told for the beginning of the year. And this is the same chart as earlier, but the superintendent had a message, although he could not be here this evening. Mr. Jeanette couldn't be here this evening, so he asked me to be his voice for a quick minute to speak to council. Your worship, members of council, and citizens of Dieppe. First of all, I apologize that I'm not there with you this evening. However, I have the utmost confidence in Charles and the other members of the RCMP who are with you this evening and telling you what we are about to deliver. I simply want to say that this budget proposal concerns people. We need people to help and serve Dieppe's population and the Kodiak region. We need your support in order to be able to get where we should be and to provide people with the support that they need in order to be more efficient and serve the citizens of Dieppe by providing them with quality policing services. Council have major decisions to make in the days and weeks to come. However, this proposal is not a wish, it is a need. As a current resident of the region, a husband and probably a future retiree in the Kodiak area, I want to make sure that all my family and friends and people are safe. Thank you for your support, Benoit Chalette, Superintendent. Thank you. Thank you for this presentation. I imagine that there may be some questions by council members. None? There are none? All of a sudden you're shy? Councillor Turgeon-Roy, thank you. I'll ask my question in French. So you have said to us that you're forecasting 17 members, but for the current budget that you're putting forward is 7 members that are going to be hired. For the rest, is there a forecast what the budget will be next year? Because things are moving up. It's considerable. It has an impact on our budgets, generally speaking, here in Dieppe. So we know that there's going to be another impact next year. We don't put everything in the same basket. How are you going to say that? To be clear, the 17 are in the budget, but we don't need to pay them because they're only going to be coming in little by little over the course of the year. So we are forecasting that 7 of the 17 will be there. So next year in 2026, all 17 will be there. So they're all going to be paid. They'll be needing rifles and the rest of it. So the 7, if you approve them this year, would be $4.5 million. That's the difference. And with only 7 of the 17, it's about 1.9 million. So that's the difference. I understand. And this is what we're trying to clear up. We know that the decision is for the $4.5 million. That's what's going to be happening in the coming years. But next year, if ever there are other members next year, it's the same way of doing things. It takes the whole year before we can get the members that we need. You're confident that you're going to get all those people? Yes.
Au niveau du recrutement, là?
The recruitment, the depot is pretty much full to the rafters, we're being told. The contract forces the RCMP to get people. It's not the new positions we're talking about. It's the difficulty, and more often, the issue is with vacancies because that's not in the contract. That could take a little more time. And actually, that's what we had this year. The new positions, normally within the space of a year, well, a year is still a long period of time when you're preparing a budget, when you're looking to see what's going to be happening. Great, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Lantagne. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for your presentation. 2 things with regard to finances. As Councillor Turgeon mentioned a moment ago, if we could have the financial plan over the 3 years and a few more details. If we're talking about increases, so increase in criminality, increase in population, increase in staffing, etc. So could we have the lines? You know, we're not all financial people and accountants around the table. If we could see something a little more detailed but simplified so we can better understand these increases and how we can see them and compare them to. And if you could do it over a 3-year span, so we also have to plan our things. It's not just next year that we're looking at the future for our taxpayers. Another point is about specialized support. I'm one who strongly believes, and you've said this about specialized services for road safety. As police officers, and you're looking at all of the community, there are financial resources and limited human resources, and there are things that, you know, that we have to focus on. Homelessness and crime rates that have increased over the past years. We can't neglect those things. So as councillors, and I'm speaking for my colleagues because we hear this often, you attend the meetings, you hear it as well. We constantly are hearing about speed, and speed of cars. So I don't know to what extent we would have to do an analysis to see what you can put forward. But for the 10 police officers for highway safety for 2026, you know, for years now, people have been talking about this issue. So would it be possible to look at maybe moving, maybe, I don't know if it's possible,
25 peut-être
maybe
avec
in 2025, we could begin with 2 or 3 officers who are dedicated to doing road safety and show citizens that we're serious about this. And is it possible? Is it not possible? I'm just wondering if it's something that you could look at and see if it's possible. Those are the items I wanted to raise. Maybe I can answer your first question. We're presenting in Moncton next Monday, and after that, we should have a 3-year plan, which is going to answer your questions for 2026, the complete impact of the 17 new staff who are going to be there. And secondly, when we looked at data and when PwC showed us the data that we showed a bit of it, there's a lot of it, quite a bit of data. There is no question that our focus should be on property crimes. And this is the first issue that we should be focusing on. So yes, we could do the change, but the data says no. The data says we should remain with the priorities that we've identified. And secondly, it's difficult to have 3 traffic units with 3 people in them. There's a standard minimum staff that you have, and it's around 8. Then you have something that's going to work properly. That's why in the second year, it's going to be a big year for staffing, because the people who do the patrol and do traffic right now, there will be even more of them then. Well, at least we have things to say to people, and thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Godet. Thank you, Your Worship. I'm asking questions in the same vein. I don't want to repeat what the councillor has just said, but where's the formula where you want to be placing them? You are the experts, but in Dieppe, as councillors, as Councillor Lantang said, we're talking about speeding, excessive noise. These are the things that we hear about time and time again. The budget's going to go up, and we don't have anything for that. I'm talking for us, not talking for Moncton and Riverview. But I would have thought there'd be at least 1 or maybe even 2. I'm talking on our behalf for Dieppe. So I'm following up on the comments you've just heard. Thank you, Councillor Godbout. Thank you. And Councillor Godet and Lantang, I also share your concerns about these matters. And as a representative on this CRPA, and the assurance I was given is by putting the focus on 7 property crimes, it's going to go down. And this is going to lighten the workload. And so the people who are going to be freed up for this are then going to be assigned to traffic control and the rest. So it's begun. We shouldn't have to wait to get a traffic unit. We should be able to already start to feel the effect, given that property crimes will be coming down and there will be fewer other things. As these things come down, then the staffing will be sound elsewhere. The analysis, they said, and the order in which we do things in order to be efficient and how they analyze it. So if we do it in this order, we all benefit in the long run. But there's going to be an early benefit for Dieppe and for traffic control as well. So I think I have properly explained that. The people are saying yes with their heads. So I think it's, this is the issue that's at stake. Now, the people have seen this budget. It's astronomical. I almost fell off my chair when I saw the amounts the first time. It took us some time to reconcile ourselves with the amounts that were put forward, to understand and to look at them. But when you look at the important catch-up work we have to do, the things that clients are asking us to do, I think our citizens are saying that we still have a responsibility to offer something to the policing authority and the contract with the RCMP to ensure the well-being of the community as we're being requested to do. I've already expressed this and around the table that I have questions about where we're heading in the next couple of years as well. And once we get caught up, should we take a break and now analyze what we have by way of services and see what's needed? Can we get reorganized? There's a new building. will that present opportunities for us? So we have analyses to do as a police authority to look at the next challenges ahead of us and to do things maybe differently in the future to see how we can avoid that we no longer have huge increases like this. And secondly, if we can prevent these huge increases that are already anticipated, because this is a cumulative burden which is not can be supported. I have some difficulty in seeing if we don't do this, then we will not be able to sustain the increases that are coming. Thank you. Councillor Le Boutillier.
Oui, merci, Monsieur le maire.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Comme la plupart des conseillers, là, puis je vais pas
As
me
most councillors, and I'm not going to repeat what's been said, but what I'd like to see, and it's just been validated, in fact, you know, where we have the budget in 3 years' time. It was requested last year during the presentation,
avoir les chiffres mêmes.
and we also wanted to see the figures of the financial statements as they have been presented in previous years.
Comme celui-ci.
There's no reason that we don't have the right facts to look back in the previous 2 years and use the data from 2024, 2023, pardon me, and 2025, which is upcoming. So the question I had with regard to the costs related to the new building, and maybe it's a question to the CEO. So this new building, is it going to be in the 2025 budget?
En commençant à payer ce nouvel
When are we going to be starting to pay for this building? Yes, in 2025. They'll be there 9 months out of 12, as Mr. Moore or Mr. Savoy mentioned. So 9 months out of 12, and the 3 additional months in 2026 for a complete year.
le DG dans les
What does that mean for Mr. CEO? What are we looking at in coming years for the cost? It's $3 million per year, which is shared out in different portions. The 3 million, the 3 municipalities sharing in that. 4?
I can say rough numbers, so 3 million for 2025, but going forward, it'd then be 4 million.
Okay.
Okay. And by memory, Don, it was a more depreciated over 15 years, right? That building?
I thought it was 25 years, but I'm not sure. That would be a question.
Anyway,
the
maybe
CEO.
so in the presentation at the Moncton next week, so when are we in Dieppe will be allow the budget for the next 3 years and also the comparable that we can compare numbers?
It should be within, by the end of next week, we should meet with Moncton, I guess, and see if there's any other demands or requests. And then by the end of the week or early in the next one. So I'd say 2 weeks from now, we should be okay. Dans 2 semaines.
Okay.
In 2 weeks' time.
Thank you very much.
Monsieur Le Boutillier, la dépréciation, c'est sur 25 ans.
25.
Depreciation is over 25 years, Councillor Le Boutillier.
Merci.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, if I may, we had presented during the 3 council meetings a very clear request to the police force to have an assessment of the workload analysis. Has this been done? And is this document, which you're presenting over the course of 3 years with regard to the number of officers, we haven't received any document. So I'm wondering if the work has been done so that you can undertake an analysis to do the human resources analysis. That was the workload that we had done. And in the next 2 weeks, so for the coming 3 years and the last 2 years, for the financial issues, we'll be presenting you with a document which is a summary of what we can give you about the workload assessment. But most of the pieces will be there, so you'll see, just like we showed you this evening. So this also will be part of the package. We have to decide with the CRPA how we're going to be providing those documents to you, but we can do that. I can assure you that if we get any confidential information, we can use the inside committee. So all those who are present are will respect confidentiality. And so you can assure that we can assure you that we will respect that confidentiality. Next question. In the past, there were a lot of new human resources that were at the municipal level, which allowed us to be more effective and allowed officers to spend more time outside in the field. So how many people have been hired to help the officers stay in the field and do other work? And so this was investment that we have done in the last 3 to 5 years, which have allowed us to make some savings according to our various projections. That was in around 2017, 2018. There was a bigger part of that work, and that's also calculated within the workload assessment. I could show you that. I don't know if it shows it clearly, but we could certainly add a paragraph to detail that answer. Also, I saw the request for a executive director is a new amount in the budget. I thought that had already been included in the budget for the CRPA. Last year, I'm sorry, we had 25,000. The amount went up, and so when we made the variance between the two, the amount went up. Okay, we'll be checking that. Mr. Thériault has questions? Councillor Thériault? No? Thank you very much for this presentation. We'll wait to see the final figures with our neighbors. And thank you once again for this presentation, the details you've put forward and provided us. And I would also certainly like to thank our colleague, Councillor Godbout, for the work that she's been doing. I know it's a very heavy workload, nor is it an easy workload to do all this. Thank you all. Thanks to all of you. You've eaten up about 40 extra minutes of time, but we're going to try and get caught up very quickly. Thank you. Transaqua.
Bonsoir, bienvenue.
Good evening and welcome. Good evening, Your Worship. I'm Mona Lisa Lavallée, President and representative of the City of Dieppe on the Transaqua Wastewater Commission. I'm also treasurer for the past 20 years on this commission. We're here this evening to present the operating and capital budget of 2025 for Transaqua. Here is a budget overview. We'll tell you our mission and vision statements, the budget priorities for 2025, the draft operating budget for 2025, as well as the draft capital budget for 2025. Our mission is to collect and treat wastewater in a reliable, cost-efficient, and environmentally responsible manner. Our vision is to be an outstanding environmental steward, supporting regional planning, economic development, and quality of life for the communities of Moncton, Dieppe, and Riverview. Our budget priorities for 2025 are to ensure cost-effective and sustainable delivery of services while ensuring an appropriate unit rate for 2025. So the rate is frozen at $210 per unit. It's the same rate in effect since 2016. In 2025 priorities, there is illegal contaminant detection, increased staffing to meet operational requirements, wastewater heat recovery. This is something that's going to be discussed. Composting process improvements, replace 4 main pumps and 3 centrifuge feed pumps. Develop initiatives for communication strategy, and implementation plan. I'll now give the floor to Sharon, who will discuss the draft operating budget for 2025. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Sharon Doucette, Director of Finance for Transaqua. I'm going to run through the operating and the capital budget. So as we were preparing our budget, our priority was to have ensure that we keep the rate stable. We wanted to enhance our cash flow forecast and improve our long-term capital spend. This slide here shows our 2024 budget, the projections for 2024, as well as the 2025 budget. As you can see, our expenses are continuing to arise on our operating expenses, and that's reducing our surplus. It's our amortization and our surplus that funds our capital plan. This is our financial summary. So as you look at 25 to 28, our revenues are declining. So what's happening here is our GICs are starting to mature, and we're using the money from our interest income is starting to decrease because we're using the GICs to fund the capital program. So we're going to start seeing that reduction in our revenue. Our expenses in 2025 are higher because we have additional consulting fees around capital plan, around the regional strategy. So that's costing more in 2025. We also have some specific maintenance items in 2025 that are earmarked in 25, but not in 26 to 28. And we are showing modest surplus for 25 to 28. Our revenue breakdown is basically made up of the user fees that we get, and that's all derived our rate of 210, and those are provided to us from the tri-communities. As mentioned on the previous slide, the interest income, the 1.6 million, we're going to start seeing that to decrease from 26 onward. So this slide here is our breakdown, the distribution of our operating expenses. Of the 15 million, about 5 of that is amortization, and the rest is around $10 million. That is, we're seeing an increase in operating the plant. The costs are increasing, and the production of our biosolids is also increasing. So with those increased costs, we need additional resources to meet the demand, and we have 3 additional positions added to this year's budget. So this slide here shows since 2016, we've maintained the rate at 210. So what happened after our upgrade project at the end of 2022, our costs on the operating side are escalating. So that's where you're seeing a reduction in our surplus, but that's where cash forecasting for us becomes very important, because with the costs increasing and the surplus decreasing, that's where we start making sure that we can fund and trying to sustain the 210 rate. So I'm going to move on to the capital budget. So this is the highlights from the 2025 capital budget. We're looking to spend approximately $11.3 million with a focus on asset replacement and the treatment facility. Our plan for the 5 years of capital, we have our highlights on this slide of what our primary focus is. And in 2025, we are adding the wastewater heat recovery project, as well as replacing the 4 main pumps at the pumping station and expanding the curing lot at our compost facility on DeLong Drive. This is our 15-year capital forecast. So what this is, last year, this has increased $35 million to just over 100 million. So last year's capital forecast would have been around 65 million. We've included the CSO pumping stations back into the capital plan. So this provides preliminary treatment of wastewater, overflow wastewater. So these were outside the 15-year window and have been reintroduced. So I'll move on to the last slide here. This is our cash flow forecast. This is a new slide that was requested. This shows roughly where our cash will be at the end of 2028. We do have some unknowns. So we have a request from Moncton to either move or cover our compost facility at DeLong Drive. So that report is, we sent that report out and we're waiting for that to come back. So we don't know what the cost of that could incur for us if we have to move or replace or whatnot. So that's an unknown for us. The other unknown that we have is plant expansion or building a new location for regional growth. So it normally takes about 15 years to build a plant. So we have to really plan ahead. Today's kind of the day to kind of start looking ahead to the future to see how much what that looks like for us. So starting in 2025, we really need to put a focus on what that means. So there's studies and whatnot being done so we can kind of answer that question. But we're looking ahead now to make sure that we're ready for the future. That's it. That's it.
That's it, merci. Thank you very much for your presentation. Question, Madame Godbout.
Merci, merci pour la présentation.
Thank you for your presentation. I just want you to add on to your last point. You were talking about your future. You're looking at the possibility of capacity of a second plant, a treatment plant in the future. So what's the current capacity, and how long do we have? How long will we be able to meet the current need? So when will we have? When will be the soonest that we'll need a new plant as well, based on population projections and things like that?
This year we did a population growth study. So right now we're looking at next year, trying to understand what that looks like. So we'll have better answers next year in 2025. But right now we just know that this could potentially be on the horizon, because with the way population growth is happening right now in the region, there's really, we don't want to leave it to the end and then all of a sudden it's, hey, we need a new plant. So, but there's conversations definitely in the region with the tri-communities and with the technical committee, and these are on the table and they're trying to figure out what that looks like right now.
So based on, what is our current capacity in terms of what we're fulfilling, and what is the capacity of the actual plant right now? Is there a difference?
Do you want to take a stab at that one, Kevin?
Right now, we're probably at about 70% capacity for annual dry weather flows, but during a storm, we are over capacity. We have to bypass after primary treatment into the river. So with the CSOs in Moncton, and especially with the rainstorms we had a few weeks ago, the inflow and infiltration coming from Dieppe that is supposed to be a closed sanitary system, the flow at Fox Creek during that wet weather event actually increased by 50%. And in Riverview increased by 300%. So during wet weather events, even though they're closed sanitary systems, there's a lot of inflow and infiltration that the technical committee will be working on to try to work with the communities on how to reduce that. City of Moncton will be reducing their combined sewer overflows every year. They do a little bit more, with a major project expected to come up in 2027 to 2029 on Wheeler Boulevard. So at the Halls Creek area. So really, for us, it's extremely important that the community understands the population growth is actually higher than what was predicted in the original wastewater and CSO regional strategy a couple of years ago. This year, we updated it because of that growth. And then next year, we'll actually answer the question, can we expand on the existing site? Because if we cannot, and population growth continues to increase, there will be pressure to build a new treatment facility in either the Moncton or Dieppe communities. So from the time you understand that you have a need in our industry, to the time you need to identify the funding, identify the construction schedule, hand the keys over and turn it on, is about a 15-year window. So we want to be very proactive, start answering these questions now.
Merci.
Thank you, merci. Monsieur Thibodeau.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire.
Thank you, Your Worship. In your financial summary, you say that you're expecting a decrease in revenue between 2027 and 2028. I don't understand why the revenue is going to go down unless you're going to reduce the rate. Can you explain that to me? How do you arrive at those figures?
$1.6 million annually on interest income. So we have GICs that we've locked in investments that we've they're starting to mature. So we're using that money that we have in the investments as they mature to fund our capital program. But because we don't have that money in GICs anymore, our interest income is going to go down.
Okay, thank you.
Je ne vois pas d'autres questions.
I don't see any other questions. Are there any other? No? All right, thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you for representing us as well as you do. We really appreciate it. And we hope continue to do good work that you do.
And we're going to move along. Excusez-moi, avant ça, oui, c'est vrai, l'horaire a changé et on a une présentation.
So our schedule changed. We have a presentation now from Jérémy Aubé, our specialist in public transit. Thank you, Your Worship. Councillors, I'm here to do a short presentation and an update on our transit growth update, and to give you a bit of context as well for what will be the other transit presentation that will be coming after me. So I just wanted to go back to the suggested routes. So what you see on the screen here is something that you saw last year. This was a plan that was presented to residents during the public consultation in September, and that ends today. So, and we'll have the results of that consultation soon. But basically in black, you see the existing lines, so 96, 98, and 97. And then in the red, light red, that will be a north-south route from Aviation Boulevard up to Dover. And then 98, that will cover Chartersville and Lake Vernon and Lorette. So that's what we're proposing to the community and what has already been discussed with the committee in the past. So the table here is to talk about fleet growth. So it describes the growth that needs to take place. So we will have six buses today, and that will allow us to add 2 new routes and to up the frequency or add bi-directional routes. So we had a public consultation exercise, as I mentioned. It ends today. That was phase 1. And after that, we'll be proposing different options in the coming months. We'll be looking at the data that we received, and we'll start designing a new service to come up with some options. And we will be upping the number of hours of each route.
Donc, juste pour mettre un contexte en termes d'échéancier.
So just to give you an idea of the timetable, so what we can expect in the coming months. And so, as I said earlier, October 2024, we finished the public consultation of phase 1. And so we presented the proposed routes and some general information. In the coming months, we will be analyzing that data and compiling it. December to January, we'll be designing the new service with the routes and timetables and so forth. And then once we've kind of settled on routes, we'll develop routes and we'll go to phase 2, another public consultation, and we'll be asking people, if what we're proposing meets their needs in the city. And once that phase is over, we will be coordinating with Kodiak Transpo for service improvements. After that, from February to March, we will be receiving new buses. So we expect to receive those buses in the middle of or at the end of the winter. March and April, we'll be preparing those new buses for service. There's a number of equipment that we need to add before we can put them into service. April to May, we'll be setting up the necessary infrastructure in the field for the new route. And we'll be modifying the existing routes as well if needed. And at the end of May, we're planning on launching the service upgrade. So that's all I had to say. Thank you for your presentation. Are there any questions from councillors? All right, Mr. Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship. You know, I'm looking at the new routes that are being proposed. The one in blue that ends on Lorette Street. Could we maybe go to Champlain up to the piloting college? Yes. Well, that's the information that we wanted to check through the public consultation. So what we have on the screen is what was proposed, but the exercise is still open. Should we might change those routes to meet the needs. So that's yeah, because there are a lot of people from that area that have been talking to me about this. And we know that, you know, there are a lot of students as well that go to that college that don't have cars, and that, you know, there's no sidewalks in that area either. And the traffic, you know, it goes at, the speed is like 90 to 100 kilometers per hour in that area as well. Yes, we also have on-demand transit as well that serves that area. But as we build those new routes, we'll be reducing the on-demand transit, but yeah, we can still change those the proposed routes. Ms. Turgeon-Roy, please, or Councillor Turgeon-Roy, please. Thank you for the update. I'm curious to know, in terms of the public consultation, was it just 30 surveys, or did you go out among among residents? Well, it was basically online, and there was a bit of outreach as well. So there was information at the market and in buses as well that directed people to go online. But yeah. Any further questions? Oh, sorry about that. Councillor Leboutier. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you very much for the presentation. I have 3 questions. So first, as Councillor Turgeon mentioned, we have to make sure when you do public presentations to connect with all segments of the population. So how do we, you know, how can we make sure that seniors are well represented? So maybe you have to go meet with the seniors associations. But that's a segment of our population that and maybe in the future we'll be able to offer that service free, you know, based starting at a certain age. So that's one point that I wanted to make. Another point is, and I don't see it here, but maybe it's there. In the future, you know, in terms of seniors and in residents, are we going to have buses that, you know, in the mornings or 2 times a day to go directly to the hospital, or areas that are like for priority services? Yes, Councillor Leboutier, we have regular discussions with the OC Transpo to see how we can do that, how we can get out of the, you know, there are some services that are outside the city, so we're looking at how we can serve them. So there are strategic places, the University of Moncton, the hospitals. You know, we're aware that a lot of Dieppe residents go to those places. So I hope we'll come up with a solution that works. And it'll be part of the agreement that we have. All right, that's all for me. Thank you. Councillor Godbout. I have a very specific question for you. And it involves the public participation and engagement. I read the public engagement policy that we have, and there are 3 levels of engagement that can be used. So we have the consultation level, involve, and engage level. So those are they're 3 different processes. So what level of engagement or involvement was used with this public consultation on public transit? Do you know? I would say it was consultation. So we didn't want to give the public carte blanche, in developing these routes. We wanted to present something and then get the feedback from the public. In January, then we'll go back to the public and say, okay, that we looked at your comments. This is what we propose. And then we'll be adding timetables as well. And then we'll be asking them if that meets people's needs. So people have a second chance to kind of express themselves. Okay, well, you talk about involve rather than consult, but maybe you can come back and. But it sounds like what you're saying is it's a level 2 consultation. But what I'm hearing is that people want to involve the community, and so that people can influence the outcome. But maybe so I understand that this is a consultation, but maybe let me know if that's not the case. All right, thank you. Anyone else? All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Obey, for your presentation. And now, Kodiak Transpo, Angela Alain. Welcome.
Bonsoir. Good evening, Your Worship, members of council and staff. Thank you, Jeremy, for introducing the segment. There's a lot of good work happening with your staff, with Kodiak Transpo. We really appreciate that. I'm going to go through quite briefly here a few slides on a few other updates, and then we'll get into the budget. Just wanted to bring your attention to a few things we've introduced this year. So you now have cameras on your buses. And as Jeremy mentioned, you have 5 buses on order, which is very significant. We look forward to receiving those. For 2025, some of our main planning includes the tri-community agreement, which includes the billing formula for public transit, as well as new fare boxes. Also wanted to note on this slide, pending budgetary approvals in the 3 communities. We do not plan to increase cash transit fare next year, but we do plan to increase bus passes by $1 each. A few comments on the tri-community agreement. This has been a multi-year process of meetings with your staff. The goal is to get to an hourly rate, basically to simplify the agreement to a level where you can do your planning much more quickly. The current formula takes us a few weeks every time we change something to give you back feedback on. There's some changes to what we're direct billing, including fuel, which saves you money. So that was a very good change. We continue direct billing on maintenance and shelters. There's some new fees for servicing that would apply for the city of Dieppe because you're increasing your fleet substantially. But the fees to borrow a bus are changing, but that will not have any impact because you are being very proactive in buying more buses. This is a quick slide on your ridership. This is showing January to September this year compared to last, and it's very impressive. In September 2020, so the red line, the top line is 2024. So the last column 32,000 people in September. That's a 47% increase from the same month last year. And if you look at the year-to-date, January to September, you've increased 76% ridership since a year ago. So we are seeing tremendous transit ridership growth in all three communities, but this is quite stellar, I must say. Here is our budget presentation. So essentially, I'm going to go through the column here on the left. I'm just going to explain this as best I can here so it doesn't get too confusing. Across the top, you'll see the yearly service hours. So 2024 budget was approximately 15,000 hours. But being proactive, because your ridership demand increased, you actually went beyond that. And I'll just make an amendment here. It's actually 17,758 hours is what you're operating in 2024. And that same number, 17,758, is the next column for the 2025 budget. So that would be a status quo budget. And then the column after that is for your future planning, what Jeremy just alluded to. So this is up to another 10,000 hours a year if you choose to increase that. You don't have to increase by 10,000 hours. It's just providing a range to give you a cost estimate here or projection on what that would do to the budget. So I'm going to focus now on the 2025, the last two columns, the 2025 budget, third column over, which is the status quo, and the furthest column on the right, which is the growth budget for 2025. So below the service hours, which is that top line, below that is the administration and operations section. So this, in 2025, you can see status quo budget 1.2 million. That includes contractual increases and also several new staff, which we may not get approved in our budgets as we go to the other communities. So this number could reduce. It's unknown at this time, but we put it in there to be transparent and flag any potential cost increases. The next line on servicing, that's basically going to increase because the size of the fleet is going up 100%. The building costs, this as well is somewhat related to indoor storage, so the extra space for the buses that are on their way. Also, its utilities costs and building maintenance costs are built into that. Replacement buses, $10,000, that's very low because we don't expect you to have any costs there, really. You've got 5 more buses on the way. So you've been very proactive in planning for that. Direct billing on fuel and fluids is the next line. That is essentially in that middle 2025 budget column. You can see fuels budget at $292,772. So that would be if we operate 17,758 hours like we are right now for this year. If we transfer that to next year, that's just reflecting what we estimate fuel rates could be. And the column adjacent to it would be, again, projecting 10,000 new service hours, which is equivalent number of new kilometers. So of course we would increase in fuel costs if you grow the service level. The next line is bus maintenance. This is your repairs. Pretty much status quo budget there, again, because you've got a fairly young fleet of vehicles and new ones on the way that will be under warranty. Shelter maintenance, no real change there. That's the bus shelters in the community. And then transit fares are listed at the bottom line. So these are projections. 600,000 is the projection for status quo budget because that's what we're projecting you're going to earn this year. You're going to be above budget. And with service growth, the number would be higher because you're being very smart in where you're adding service. So you're looking at adding service where you have the highest passenger demand. So your revenue uptake on those routes will be quite successful. So we've modeled 800,000 for transit fares associated with the 10,000 hours of growth. So you can see those last two numbers on the bottom of that page, 1.4 million to 1.9 million is approximate range, I guess we'll call it, for where the final budget numbers could sit, depending on the service hours that are ultimately decided upon. So I'll leave it there, and I'll open available for any questions. And I forgot when I got up here to mention Bob Bowser's here with me, our Finance and Administration Supervisor.
Hi, Bob. Question de la part des membres du Conseil.
Questions from councillors?
Hard to believe. Madame Le Boutillier, ou- non? Non
Mr.
plus?
Boutier, no? Okay.
Alors, merci. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much.
It's very good news, and I'm going to continue to do to our staff the same pitches I make every time we talk about le transport en commun. Je pense que tout le monde le sait. Qu'est-ce que l'objectif du maire, c'est que
I think everybody knows that my objective is that our citizens use the bus or be able to use the bus when they're be able to use it at no cost. It's because it's such an important service. It's so important to see the use go up. I think that we would fill our buses quite quickly if you know, the people would have no more excuses there not to use the bus if it was free. But we, you know, with the cost, I think our objective as a community should be to allow everyone to use the bus service. All right, that said, have a nice evening, everyone.
for accommodating us and good work with our staff that I know everybody appreciates each other. Merci bien. Maintenant, on va continuer avec
All right, now we'll continue with Eastlink.
excusez-moi, il y a quelque chose de bien important qui s'en vient, puis j'essaie d'accélérer le processus.
Oh, something is really important coming, and I'm in a big hurry.
8h45. Monsieur Godbout.
Mr. Goodboo.
Bonsoir.
Good evening.
Merci beaucoup. Bonsoir tout le monde. Merci de nous recevoir ce soir.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. We couldn't say no to you. You're now a star. We see you everywhere. As soon as anyone talks about development, the photos pop up everywhere throughout the region and even outside the country. I'm sorry, Your Worship, I didn't want to take all the place. However, I wasn't aware. It was a surprise when I got there. So thank you for mentioning that. I was very honored and pleased that I could make the city of Dieppe known outside of its confines. So there. And I'm very honored. Before going any further, I wanted to tell you about the volunteers who are on the board and with me here tonight. Councillors Turgeon-Roy and Pocadette, who are at the table, as well as Angela Spencer, Mr. Melançon, and clearly you, Your Worship, who is ex officio. This evening, I was supposed to have people from the board, however, but they came at the scheduled hour. They had other undertakings, and so they couldn't stay. They were members of our team. And so, let's launch this and keep on track as much as possible. This is the last year of our strategic plan, which concludes in 2024. We developed a new strategic plan, close cooperation with the economic strategy of the city and in parallel with it. So both are happening in the spring and summer. So what I want to tell you about are the new elements of the strategic plan. First of all, our mission to favor an ecosystem which is resilient and favorable to economic development, prioritizing business success for collective prosperity, our values, our integrity, teamwork, and this teamwork is internally and externally. So within our team and also with working with the city and our other partners. So in order to attain our objectives. And finally, be dynamic, stimulate innovation, and better seize the opportunities available to us in our community. And finally, our vision, we amended it to move ahead with what's happening in our environment. So we are a key actor for economic development, a strategic economic development in our area, in our environment, where businesses and the community evolve for the future, which is prosperous and resilient. So the sustainable development of the city with regard to the resilience is how we are putting it. Our strategic plan is developed into orientations, projects, and deadlines. All these strategic orientations were passed by the board back in September. So our first orientation is to clarify and redefine the role of Expansion Dieppe. Expansion Dieppe is a part of the city. You put it together 50 years ago, and we should be looking at this role once again to make sure it aligns with the needs of today's city. Our organization, the corporation, and the way it's structured is very agile and flexible. We are open to the things that can be done with this entity, and so we'll attempt to clarify this role alongside with the city. Once it's done, we'll communicate back to you and we'll make all parties aware, internally, especially, and also externally. So we hope to be doing this within the first year of the strategic plan in 2025, and that should be completed by then. The second orientation is to have a permanent structure for Expansion Dieppe. We want money for financial capacity of Expansion Dieppe. So in the presentation, I'll go a little further about return on investment and show you how much the investments the city has made has brought back to the city or any other types of capital investments. And finally, we are going to reinforce its financial capacity in order to find new sources of funding and new ways of finding new capital that will come to us to undertake projects which will again bring capital back to the city and have the governance structure evolve in Expansion Dieppe. So these two elements are going to be confirmed in 2027 and 2028, but we will begin the work now. The next orientation is to have a global vision 2040 for economic development in our area. This one, of course, is done closely with the city, how the city is going to work at it very quickly. So we'll be analyzing our strategic assets and our strategic niches. This will be done in 2026. And of course, there will be the participation from city people. And once we've identified these assets and niches, we'll develop a global vision 2040 for economic development in our area, as well as a plan to implement that. These two projects will be done over the course of 2026, 27, and 28. Another orientation is to evolve the service offer of Expansion Dieppe. We want to look at the needs of businesses, refresh it, and see what we can provide in 2026. And finally, integrate sustainable development and social responsibility through all of our practices. This is the result of the position that the city has taken with regard to sustainable development. And so we'll be looking at these notions a little closer. We want to be able to at least send our clients to the right resources when they come looking for them. And we want to integrate sustainable development and social responsibility in our projects and activities between now and the end of the mandate of the strategic plan. And of course, to promote these two elements, sustainable development and social responsibility for businesses,
En 2028.
for all our businesses. We'll be doing that in 2028. If we look at the details of what this means, you'll see at the end of each of these elements, I've put joint there. So projects 1 to 6 here, there are 10 in total, and involves the direct involvement of the city. We work closely together to realize these. And so Expansion Dieppe is, and the last orientation of sustainable development is direct alignment with the strategic direction that the city has taken. Let me take 2 minutes now to recognize all the administrators who are on the board of directors. At our last AGM in June, these are the members of the new board for 2024-2025. I want to recognize the involvement of these volunteers. Thank you for their counsels and their support. These people are passionate about supporting economic development for the city, and their perspective is very business oriented. So the person who's come onto the board at the end of the year is Roger Melançon, who is our new administrator around the table. Our team, it's a young professional team that I have the pleasure of sharing my daily work life with. Now, if you look at the people who are on this team, you see that we have a multitasking team, because there are four women around the table and 3 men. So they're going to be focused on various projects, but this gives us the best of 2 worlds, and I thank them for their passion and their devotion toward the work that we are putting forward, and also the respect of our values, which are at the heart of our organization: integrity, teamwork, and dynamism. So they're the ones who push me to move forward. I'm not there. They're pulling me forward. So property taxes, we look at the progression of the tax base, and as always, we have a non-residential and residential. So residential is in blue, and the non-residential is in gold on the bottom. So this is how we track it. We have objectives
Dans un ratio de
that we try to get close to. We want the 40-60 ratio, but this progression that we have for multi-residential is very difficult to follow, because as this grows, we have to try and grow at a high rate, not exponential, but close. With regard to the non-residential growth in the last couple of years, you don't see this on this picture, but there has been a $68.5 million in investments, so an increase of 5% on the non-residential portion. And noted here that Stefan and also can add to that is in the building permits when they're issued today. If it's a mixed use project, if there's commercial and residential in the construction, it has to be defined if it's a multi-residential building or commercial building. I'm not sure how this affects or not the figures for the tax base, but it certainly affects the rates for building permits. But they're simply figures. It's just data. I also wanted to tell you about the property assessments that we have in the industrial park. You see where the investments are by private sector. So the first zone is 155, 74 in the expansion in the west. Avenue de l'Aviation, 57 million. City Center, 74 million. and Boulevard Dieppe, 155 million. So it's a total of $516 million in property assessment. We're working directly with the city to acquire lands, rehabilitate them, and then put them at the disposal of our businesses. So that's a quick summary of the 516 million and a comparison of what's been happening from 2002 and to 2024 and the growth. In city center, there was nothing. Then we got 1.3 million in the industrial park, 76. And now finally, in 2024 in the city center, a little more than 100 million and 69 million in the business park and more in the industrial park. So you can see that almost 80% of investments which are in this sector are in the business park and industrial park projects that we've been working at for the past 20 years. And it also excludes the portion related to the airport. The 45 million, which is a property value and tax base, is not included in these figures. It could be included. We just chose not to. So once again, the total.
Qu'est-ce que ça représente en impôts
Finally,
fonciers?
what does it mean for property taxes? These investment values are private investments put on the lands that we have made available for $1.8 million in value in 2002. I'm sorry, in property taxes that these lands were bringing back to the city. So 1.8 million out of the 516 that we were telling you about, but 516 in 2024. So today, the projects that we've been working on, starting back in, or now in 2024, has brought $12 million in direct return to the city. So we're not calculating the other direct income, residences, employment, businesses, but this is coming directly from the lands that we have developed. So if you do a straight line between the 1.8 and the 12.1 million in 2024, and you put all the years together, what it put forward in the direct line, I didn't do a calculation, but if you put on a direct line, a straight line, it's more than $160 million that the city has gotten directly from property taxes over these past 20 some years. A moment ago, we said that almost 80% was in the business park and industrial park. If you exclude the city center, that means that the industrial park, business park brought over $125 million directly in property taxes to the city, without counting all the indirect benefits. And if you look at what has been invested, basically, over this period of time, a little under $25 million, and there were capital investments that were undertaken over that period as well. So basically, this is what it means, the work and the reason that you created this corporate entity to develop the lands. So if you look toward the future to see what's happening and the projects that we have in the pipeline,
Donc, on voit en 2020.
Expansion Dieppe, you can see in 2024, almost $40 million worth of projects, but these are projects that we're directly involved in. And there's another 60 million in projects that's happening, but we haven't been directly involved in. So we're talking about 100 million. We have commercial projects. We have multi-residential projects that are coming in 2024, and our building permits support what we're seeing in these figures. It's the same order of magnitude. In 2025, $47 million worth of projects coming, and all of these projects are either on lands in the industrial park or the business park or in city center on lands that we have developed, except for one piece of property. And then the last column is for 2026 and the coming years. We mash that all together a little bit beyond 2026, coming down the pipeline, $123 million worth of projects that are coming. And all these projects are either on lands that have been developed in the business park or the industrial park on those lands and properties. This year, we were asked to work and present our budget in two parts. So there was a request for an operational budget, which I'm giving to you tonight, which was passed by the board of directors. And in a moment, I'm going to show you a draft of the development projects, which hasn't yet been passed by the board of directors because we didn't have time at the last meeting. But let me tell you about the main components of that in a moment. Good news is the request we're putting into the city for operations and the part we've had for many years related to budget, the development is about the same thing. So out of concern to making sure our books were straight and shared, there is no increase in our request for financing, but you can see that we have a loss accumulating, which allows us to rebalance our books. Inflation is catching up with us. So if you look at the big swings from year to year, there are some swings with regard to city incomes, but this, the 130, well, the 1.30 million was really a 1.20 million. And bankers, it's a more reasonable figure. We reduced our budget by $21,000 there.
Dépenses au niveau du coût
With
fixe.
regard to expenditures, fixed costs, the big part there is the $50,000 with regard to related to human resources, all the benefits related to human resources. So with regard to this year, because the 766 is not the real, we're higher than that because of inflation that's been happening in the last couple of years. We're talking about a 4% increase. So real or related to our 2025 budget. So there's an increase of $5,000 under professional fees. And so it brought the those fixed costs to the difference between $55,000. We've reduced training. There was a course that I was providing that had been done in 2024. We went to get a subsidy from the province. We had put that on our books that we didn't have in 2025. And the event for the 50th anniversary, which is happening in November, we had put $55,000 toward that. And so we're not going to celebrate it twice. I don't want to be 100 years old and twice. So that explains that variance. With regard to strategic elements, the strategic projects, administrators development, we had $40,000 and we did the strategic plan this year. So we had funding there. We kept around $20,000 to get some help and contact with experts who were helping us with our strategic plan. This element is probably not enough, but because we're doing things jointly with the city, we're going to look at how we can work with that. And so we'll make the adjustments as needed. A small increase with regard to marketing, publicity, advertising, and communications, a small increase there. Business development, no change. Technology, a small increase. And others, signs, we were counting them in the development projects. Last year, when the auditors looked at that, they put it under operations. So we had to transfer that figure. So that was the amount that we put for the park. We had 2 signs, 3 are left to be done. We'll probably do 2 again this year, and then the next one the year after that. So there you go. For 2025, without any increase for our operations budget, there will be a loss of $290,000. Historically speaking, look at what happened with our budgetary requests. If you go back to 2020, there hadn't been any increase requested of the city. And in 2024, you see that it went down from 1.1 million to 1.03, which is the money that's given to us by the city, but we changed where it was going to be used. and it's used in development projects now, so it'll appear in another budget, but it's not really a change on the demand. You can see that once that money's gone, since 2023, inflation with regard to our fixed costs, our administrative costs, is climbing back up, and we are having these issues with the operational costs. There are tactical initiatives that I wanted to talk to you about and tell you where we're at. So with regard to financing development in short term, we have an interim financial agreement was been approved recently. So we're going to be looking for a capital account there to provide for our capital amounts to invest. And in real estate in the long term, we're in discussions with the city, and this follows what we have in our strategic plan. Aviation road extension. The project began in 2016, and finally, this project will conclude. Thank you to the city and Angèle and the people who manage the construction project. We've already started to commercialize this project, and we already have a client on one of the pieces of property, a local entrepreneur. Industrial park, master plan, everything that's changed with regard to municipal boundaries. And also we have water, we have the backbone of our water line throughout the industrial park. We're working on that. And this will be terminated in the early 2025. We'll be in phase 3 for the industrial park development. Industrial park and business park are permanent signage. I mentioned a moment ago, there are 5 of them. We'll continue to do that. The big project for this year that we worked on with the city is to develop the Ruelle des Tracteurs. So the subdivision plan has been done, and the business plan looked at with various options along with the city, this one option, and it represents almost a $5 million investment according to the business plan that we've given to the city. And so 2 million of this 5 million would come from lands that we sell once they're developed. We hope that construction will begin in 2025, and that once these projects will be launched and approved by council, there's an application which is being looked at by government. And so we're going to come to an agreement between us and the city because it's a hot area right now if we can sell this during the second trimester. Another project for Gauvin, this construction should end in 2025, and we're doing it in conjunction with the city. So an analysis has been done. We've presented the results to the strategic team, and we'll see where we're going with that. And in the city center, an axis of activity, and it's undertaken currently by the city, and we'll be looking for financing applications shortly. So many of these things are done jointly with the city. So a lot of financing is what the city has on its books. So these are capital projects. So the 2025 budget for development is the same as been presented in previous years. We want to improve what we're doing, of course. You can see we're saying this hasn't been approved by the board of directors, but it's giving you an idea of what it's going to look like. So you see the $95,000 that the city advances to us for these projects, and then the gaps with regard to our lands and rentals. These are lands of phase 2 that we're adding. We bought a property in January of this year, and we have $25,000 for rental income. With regard to fixed costs, the property tax that we pay to the city and the province is going to increase because we're going to be able to viabilize aviation road. And so the value of the lands increases. So there will be additional property taxes to pay in the future. Debentures and interest to the city. The debenture exists in the order of $164,000 for phase 1 of Aviation Avenue and $25,000 additional dollars for financing costs for interim financing that we require to put our capital projects forward. Professional fees, a small difference, and others, fixed costs, variable costs. These are all the investments that we are doing for acquisitions or investments to be prepared for infrastructure. So there was a reduction of $500,000 there, and some reasons explain that. These are acquisitions or repurchases of property that we did this year. We won't have to do it next year. That's gone now.
Qui sont là-dedans pour faire
And
des
we also
remplacements.
have funding there to reimburse the city for Benjamin Street, which was completed this year. So there's an agreement with the city that it will be reimbursed in February for construction costs and also fees for phase one. And these are going to be reimbursed. Once we do that this year, this is going to keep us at almost $4 million. So strategic elements, this has been reduced by $120,000. So less money for signage and other amounts was provided for Ruelle des Trottoirs, but is going to go into the $5 million investment to do the project. So I took them off and I didn't count
Ça
them in
explique.
there earlier. So this explains 185 and the totals are there. So I also wanted to raise the issue that the amount that is repaid to the province or the city over the course of the year, either in property taxes or in fees for our workspace, phone, and other. So it represents $467,000 this year to the city and the province. So capital investments for next year in the industrial park, we are looking at acquisitions in the order of $675,000. The master plan we're going to have to finalize is $90,000. I kept it there for transparency purposes. Business park, construction of the Trottoir Street, $5 million, but the money will come from sale of lands. There's a possibility of another property that we want to acquire. We'd like the flexibility for that. It's early in the process for that. And with regard to city center, we have some acquisitions that we would like to undertake in 2025 for the city center with the axis of activity and a little design work for the Gauvin îlot in the order of $30,000.
Je voulais prendre le temps ici de vous expliquer. Puis
So I wanted to take a bit of time here to, now I know the figures are small here. Sorry about that. But here's an example of a project. You know, when we do a business case, this is the development of Des Trotteurs Lane. So I won't go into all the details. This was prepared with our help and the service department, Angèle at engineering, to make sure that we had the right figures. But basically what it says is that with the investment, you will have paid your investment off in 15 years. And then after 20 years, then that would bring in $1.7 million to the city. Now, there are hypotheses that it doesn't include inflation. It doesn't, you know, when we think of HST, and, you know, if you sell the property after a year and after the second year, then property taxes kick in. Basically, so it'll depend on what you decide to do. And I know that you will have some difficult decisions to make, but here is a $3 million investment that will, in 20 years, will bring in $1.7 million. I don't think all our projects are like that, so just thought I'd put that out. All right, so I'm ready to take your questions now, and hopefully I can answer them. Any questions from councillors?
Madame Godbout.
Councillor Godbout.
Merci.
Thank you.
Je note le temps, là, je ne veux pas passer
I'm looking at the time. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but thank you for the presentation, first of all. There's lots of information. It's clear, even if it's sometimes difficult to understand. And it's difficult to understand because, you know, in your figures, you know, you're an independent organization, but you have revenue from the city and you generate income for the city, but then you have operational losses. So it's hard to understand what it, you know, what it means for the city. So it can be difficult to understand, but I think I understood what you were saying. So there are quite significant operational losses. Now, I've understood that in your strategic plan, you intend to address that issue. Did I understand that? Or do you just accept that as a real thing and you're not going to address it? We have to look at everything in the long term, but in the midterm, we have to focus on capital investments to the expansion Dieppe staff. You know, most of our operational costs are costs associated with the activities of our staff. But you're short. You're in a shortfall situation now. Yes, because we haven't made an increase for 6 years. So that's the issue. So our ask has not followed inflation, and the capital is not there. The funds that we had, you know, in this slide, we see profits in previous years, and it's because there was always investments in land. So those are assets that we have that belong to the city. You know, of all the ent groups that are presenting, we're the only ones that appear in the city's budget. So everything that belongs to us belongs to you. So, but in operational, if you want to continue to have the staff to organize events and to do promotional activities, we'll have to base that on our fixed costs that follow inflation. So sooner or later, you know, last year it was $250,000 and now we're at $290,000. And the total of, well, there was $1.3 million left that was in land, non-assigned funds. But so we'll be asking for more funds next year to have the liquidity to end our years and not to be, you know, we have a book value of $3.5 million, but to operate, we need cash. We need liquidity to make investments, and then the investment return in property taxes to the city. So, all right, thank you for your answer. I think that you know, your presentation helps us better understand the situation. All right, my pleasure. Thank you. Any other questions? I don't see any other questions, so thank you for your presentation. And don't give up. All right, thank you for your attention and your support. And your baby expansion Dieppe is there to generate other sources of revenue for you in the future. All right, that brings us to item, if I'm not mistaken, we are at item number 5, East Link. I'm just going to do a short introduction before I let the spokesperson for East Link take the mic, and it won't be very long. There was supposed to be a PDF, but, oh, there it is. So I'm just going to make a brief introduction. So thank you, Your Worship, councillors. So in the agenda, we had Stephen Banks, who was going to be talking for Eastlink, but Mr. Links could not be there. So his Logan McDave, his colleague, is here instead. And I just wanted to give you a bit of context. Here, this is not a decision making. We're not asking the council for a decision. We haven't received an official request. There's a preliminary work that's being done to make sure that the proposed location was in compliance with the city's rules. Now, what's specific is that the tower that's being talked about here is the proposal is to put it on city land. So there will have to be an agreement signed. So this is a process as well that's regulated by Industry Canada. It requires a public consultation, and I think they wanted to present to council before they launched the public consultation. So that's just to give you a bit of context about this presentation. And it's on the fire station it's on fire station land on Dieppe Boulevard. So it is in line with the policy that was adopted last year. So the next steps would be to complete the official demand or request, and then they can launch the public consultation. That's their responsibility to do. And as I said, it's regulated by Industry Canada. And then I'll be here as well if you have any questions about the process. But I'll leave, and I don't know if we can put that on the screen. It's a PDF document, so.
Okay. Je pense que ça devrait faire.
Okay, I think that should be okay. So I will leave Mr. McNaid do his presentation.
Hi, good evening, committee members. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me this evening. My name is Logan McDade. I'm a senior planning and permitting specialist with a company called TEP Engineering. We are a consultant for Eastlink. So we're managing a couple tower projects for Eastlink, and we manage them from start to finish. So although Eastlink isn't here, I am a full representative for the site. So I guess the gist of speaking to you folks tonight was we wanted to get an opportunity to get in front of you and maybe answer some questions, ease some concerns before we did any kind of public consultation in the community. So this site at 1600 Dieppe Boulevard, Eastlink's proposing a 45 meter, self-support telecom tower, and that would be to provide cell service to the area. Now, that area in Dieppe is underserviced at the moment, and Eastlink has been trying for a number of years to secure a property for a telecom tower in the area. Previously, with the way the bylaws and the tower siting worked, it was difficult for us to do that. With the city of Dieppe's current policy, though, we were able to find a municipal property, which was the fire station property, where we were able to put a tower in a position where we meet some of the guidelines that the city's put forward. So some of the main guidelines that we look for, there's a requirement or a recommendation to not be on residential properties. So we were able to find a property that was not residential, but is also in an area of residential properties where we need to provide service. So I guess there's also a bit of a misconception around these towers that we can put them in the middle of nowhere. At one time we could. The way cell phone service works now is that you really need infrastructure right in the middle of a community in order to provide the level of service that people require today. If it was 2001, 2002, we could put a huge tower way off across the highway in the woods. It would probably provide the service we needed, but with streaming, the fact that most households have 4 or 5 cell phones these days, you really need to have strong coverage right in these communities. So I just wanted to kind of go over the gist. I'm not going to go over the entire presentation. Charles, is there a...
You should be able to.
perfect. So I didn't want to go over the entire public consultation package just because there's a lot of boilerplate public consultation information in here, links to Health Canada, information about Health Canada, information about Eastlink's engineering principles. But we really wanted just to have a conversation with council where this will be going on a municipal property, and at the end of the public consultation, we will be asking the city to enter into an agreement with Eastlink. We just felt it was important to kind of come in here and have an initial conversation with you before we went public with anything. So I don't know if anybody has any questions currently. We can kind of just have a chat, I guess.
Yep. Question de la part des membres du conseil.
Any questions from councillors? Councillor Godbout. In French or English?
I can't speak French, sorry.
In this process, the consultation process that you undertake with the public,
Yes.
I understand that under the governing rules from the Innovation Science Economic Development ISED department that governs the licensing of these things, there's a 30-day minimum consultation period.
Yeah, so the standard ISED public consultation involves a 30-day consultation period. So we're required to send out written notice to everyone within 3 times the tower height. So with this case, a 45-meter tower, 135 meters. So everyone within that vicinity would get a notification package directed to them in the mail. We send them out express posts, so they're tracked and they're signed for. There's also a requirement to place a ad in a local newspaper. So that would be part of that as well. And that would also reflect that 30-day notification period. Anything else that the city would request on top of that would be extra to the ISED process, but we'd be open to entertaining any other forms of communication if there was some, like social media. A lot of times now, municipalities will use Facebook or Instagram to get some of these messages across. In fact, we've had some discussions with ISED about even using newspapers as a notification means because readership has gotten quite low. And we've had a lot of complaints from people that, well, we are advertising these things in the paper as per the federal guidelines. They'd like to see more accessible notifications on city websites, things like that. So if there was a requirement for that, we could do that as well. But the gist of the ISED default notification is the mail out and the newspaper ad.
Thank you. I appreciate the openness that you're showing towards those, and I think that we may take you up on some of those. I
Sure.
hope we do. Would you also be open to extending the 30 days a bit beyond? It is a minimum 30-day period. I
Yeah.
do find, as you've noted, by the time people stop, I only get the mail once a week myself, or look at certain things sometimes, at a week period, and then if you happen to have something else going on, it's difficult to do the follow-up. So would you be open to a greater than 30-day period notice period?
Sure, yeah, I'd have to chat with Eastlink about it, but that's something we've done in the past when we've been requested by council, and definitely not something we're opposed to. Even the 30-day consultation period isn't really a hard date. Like if we get to day 35 and somebody reaches out with a question, we're obviously going to engage with them. And we wouldn't ask the city for a decision until every one of those questions and comments has been addressed, to kind of Charles Eric's and the city's satisfaction as well.
Thank you. Those will answer my questions.
Yep, you're welcome.
Autre question?
Any other
Madame?
questions? Councillor Leboutier. Thank you, Your Worship. My question had more to do with the municipality. Is this the only place where we can put a tower in the city? Can we dictate where the tower goes, or how does that work? Well, this is an application that we received in this case. So there's work done in advance as well. The municipality doesn't necessarily propose sites, but it's when we receive a request, we look at whether the site meets the policy that we adopted. So that's more, it works, that's how it works. So in this case, this was a site that they proposed, but then we worked with them so that the location, there's a 1.5, there's a certain area that it has to be, distance from the street, for example, that has to be respected to be in line with the policy. But But the municipality does not designate sites in advance, no. You know, to tell the different companies to say, okay, well, this is where you have to put towers down. It's the companies that propose us or that propose sites.
Puis pour vous, il n'y a pas d'autres.
Okay, so
À côté d'une école, on a.
well, I mean, listen, so in this case, we're right beside a school, there's other development there. So 45 meters is, you know, I'm just wondering in terms of, you know, what is this tower going to look like and visually?
Un parc industriel,
You
mais
know,
pas
is there not an industrial park that we could put that in, or have you looked at those kind of details to make sure that this site
le plus stratégique possible pour tout le
is
monde.
as strategic as possible for everybody? Well, yes, 45 meters is quite high. You know, so the proposal is in line with the policy, but as was already mentioned as well, it's on municipal land. Ultimately, the municipality can make an agreement with the Eastlink or not, following the public consultation phase. And remember that this is also a process that's regulated by ICED, or Industry Canada, I think is an easier way to say it. I'm not sure about the acronym. But so ultimately, you know, they're looking at coverage, and they ask companies to consult with the municipalities, but they could go beyond, or they could go over the municipality's head as well. So in this case, you know, this project meets all the requirements that are in our policy, but again, it's on municipal land, so there's always, you know, we can always make an agreement with people from Eastlink. All right, thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. Can I ask Charles-Éric for clarification on something? So industry evaluates where the request is and where the improvements are needed, and does it take into account the growth projections as well when it looks at projects? Well, in the documents that we request, we also ask for like coverage. So we asked for an explanation of why that location has been chosen. And in the documents, we see that there is a lack of coverage, a lack of cell coverage, but there is no industrial park in close by. So but the decision hasn't yet been made. As I said, we haven't received an official application. There's still the whole public consultation phase to do, and before we make a decision. Great, thank you.
I know you probably missed most of the last bit of discussion, but
my French goes up to about grade 8.
I don't think there was anything negative about you or the company or anything like that. So
Okay, great.
thank you for your presentation, and yeah, just keep on trucking.
Okay, great. Just one more thing I wanted to mention, that Eastlink has also received application from Rogers. So Rogers Communications has been looking for a property to put a cell tower up in that area for quite a while as well. They've actually made application to Eastlink now, so that if Eastlink was to progress in the process, Rogers would put their equipment on the proposed Eastlink tower instead of pursuing their own tower in the area. So,
Okay, thank you for that.
thank you very much.
Maintenant, on va accueillir
Great. Now we're at item 6, the Dieppe Arts and Culture Center.
Madame
Hello, everyone. Séverine Fox and Fernand Poulin. I'm the president of the Arts and Culture Center since last June, and I'm accompanied by the director, Séverine. So thank you for giving us time to come and talk about the DAC, and well, thank you for being patient. No problem. We're used to it. All right, so yes, I'm very happy as a resident to talk to you about the cultural center and to make, 15 years ago, I was part of the committee that was that worked on building the center. And then 10 years ago, I was on the board and we got everything going. And so I can tell you that there's been a really nice evolution, nice growth, and I'm very proud of it. As chair, I'm very happy to work with engaged and committed and engaged people like this. All right, so we're going to be talking about our vision, our mission, our success stories in the recent year, our targets, our challenges, opportunities. We're going to talk to you a little bit about our activities for 23-24, and then our programming for the upcoming year. So in the last year, we worked with O Stratégie to work on a strategic plan for 2024-2027. And we had the members of the board participate as well and staff. And so we reworked our vision and our mission. So here are the new versions. So a vibrant world where ideas meet, collaborations are formed, and emotions are shared. That's our vision. And our mission is to be the cultural crossroads and artistic incubator of choice for its audacity and ability to reach out and bring together all communities to make them feel at home. So we're very proud of our new vision and mission. So quickly, our successes. So updating of existing policies. So this year, with Mr. Jean-Guy Viennot's help, we reviewed all our policies, all the board policies, and we have new ones as well. We haven't finished it completely, but we're hoping to finish it this year. Enhanced committee work with the support of external expertise. So we have 3 committees at the Cultural Center. We have programming, finance and auditing, and governance. And within those committees, we went and got external experts to improve that work. So strong and renewed volunteer commitment. We have a very committed team of volunteers, and our board, we have José Turgeon-Roy as well, who's on our board. And we had a new Jean-Claude Leblanc has also joined our board. So we have very committed volunteers. And we have 50 other volunteers that take part in all our activities at the center. So lots of people working. A high-performance, passionate management team. Well, what more can I say? Our team really have our center at heart, and they do exceptional work. And our director works with exceptional staff as well. And we're spoiled to have Séverine. And sometimes we think she even works too hard and that she should be careful, but it helps with the success of the center. Several new positions created and recruited. Now it depends on the new projects and projects coming up, but we have to recruit people. There's going and coming, and then for workforce retention, that's something that's important to us on the board. We want to work so that our staff feels good, that they have good working conditions. And I think, even in terms of management, I think she probably would need extra help with all the work that's ongoing. Financial results now. Now this includes operations and infrastructure. We have a slight deficit, which is acceptable for an organization like ours. And if you have more specific questions, you can answer. You can ask them. We have diverse sources of funding. So all the people listing here help us. The city of Dieppe, you are the first ones that are named, and your support in terms of HR funding, your support is really essential for the success of our center. And of course, I mean, we never have enough funding, but you know, we feel that we need more money to. All right. Well, I would like to point out the fact that we're trying to diversify our private funds of sources. So the RBC Foundation and Sheila Hugh McKay Foundation, which has been providing us support in recent months to help us develop the arts community. And as you can see, we have many, many partners. And these partners are essentials as well. And we're very happy to work with all these people and all these groups. And I will let Séverine continue. Well, maybe I'll add to that. We keep consolidating our existing partnerships and developing new ones because the needs are infinite. So there's a lot of work that's being put in to being present, going out and meeting organizations at all levels. Another success, in terms of another success that we've had is with respect to audience development. So two key figures for the past year are the 51% increase in theatrical attendance and our memberships that have gone up by 50%. So we offer diversified programming with a balance of shows, family activities, support for artists who are our and community activities as well. So this audience development is done through a number of innovations as well. We look at working with different disciplines. We offer artistic residencies when our space allows it. We have a new stage that we inaugurated 2 months ago, which it's a very small room within a larger room, and it allows us to reach a diverse audience. So general public, youth, priority groups, new artists, the two LGBTQIA+, racialized people with disabilities. So we're working hard to meet these groups as well. And we're also trying to go and get young people who don't necessarily have the ability to come to our activities. So peer recognition is another thing we wanted to mention. So we were nominated for various prizes. So the Radar Louis Doucette Award for Excellence in Leadership. We were also finalists as a music venue from Music NB. That's a new award. We were invited to key events, so professional bursaries. We've been asked to sit on juries. We received a number of visitors. So the Minister of Employment, Labour, Force Development and Official Languages, Randy Boissonneau, came to visit. And then very recently, the Canadian Council CEO, Michel Charlat. So we had more than 50 media mentions, and there were various reports on TV. We've been invited on a regular basis to talk on CBC, and there's a constant flow of publications on our website and so forth.
To conclude the objectives of 24-25, they're based on the 3 axes of planning, where the vision and the mission, which have been re-expressed. The first pillar is culture of work, well-being, We want to increase the stability and the team synergy. We want to reinforce private professional life balance and support performance, and so have a fairly intense development. The second pillar is to be known and well known and recognized, that we have multidisciplinary programming of quality, develop strategic partnerships, and have new clients because we are renewed and more visible, and support the industry professionals, our artists, our first users, our first clients, the community that we could not do without today. The last and third is to ensure the sustainability of the center, to optimize financing and governance. Of course, like all organizations that we've heard from this evening, even if the bar was very high, we want to diversify our income sources to develop our financial capacity, and we want to work on developing sponsorships and philanthropy. We want to look at financial tools and work contracts, and we want to renew our governance issues, which was launched in 2024 and will continue in 24-25. The development of new policies for inclusion of diversity, eco-responsibility, and co-responsibilities. These are the three great pillars that I've presented, but this could not have been missed by the continued requirement to innovate, not only for artists, but for the communities which are Dieppe and Greater Dieppe. We need to continue to redeploy our internal spaces. Last year, major projects were undertaken for visibility. It was rather metaphorical, but we had all these colors which were outside the perimeter of the triangle, which allowed us to show that the center was there, that things are vibrating and vibrant inside. And so we have a new renter in the commercial space who was with us for many years and today is becoming a new space. So we've announced some details about the outside, a lot of newspaper to cover what's happening inside, but there are some. So it's a cultural cafe which is going to be opening. That's the last point. My last point clearly is to continue to innovate and develop this light which will draw in others and to better serve our clients and the events that we hope to organize. It goes without saying that arts promote the feeling of belonging, and this feeling of it creates experiences and brings us together. So clearly, this is the objective that we're putting forward. With regard to challenges, if we were to bring out some of them, the main one is to root and firmly anchor our financial capacity, which will help us to develop things, to retain human resources. Someone was talking about this in previous presentations. Amongst our challenges, we would talk about the number of professionals who are developing around us, the festivals, and without talking about all other different kinds of entertainment which attract the attention of our public, and that we have to work hard to assume this challenge, which is that we are alive performances. It's a risk every day. And finally, it's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity to create a bigger municipal synergy with regard to communication. You have a jewel on your hands, and which is known and noticed, and it would be an advantage to us all to work with the biggest and greatest synergy and to promote as well. To conclude on a more positive note, the challenges are there to give us the will to move forward, but we are researching and developing strategic programs, and youth is at the heart of these new projects. We have founded the Arts Center, and our founders since 2024 have looked at the Association of Arts Centers of New Brunswick. 9 founding members, 4 francophone, 5 anglophone. We are looking for financing to work on projects for youth. We have another project that we have launched with the school district and the Department of Education called Rassembleur, and it will be developing inside Mathieu Martin. We're also amplifying and increasing our client experiences and sponsorships. This will allow us to develop this aspect. You know, I've talked about the force of the community, this Association of Art Centers of New Brunswick, Radar, which supports us and which feeds us, and we nourish back as well. Another beautiful opportunity is to bring this growing community at the Art Center with the public arts policy of the cities, because more and more artists come to find us. They work in our spaces, and with regard to creativity, we don't want to continue that. You have seen this as a possible link. This document, which further develops the issues that we have raised with you here today, and provides more information we might do a visual zoom of our programming, which is based on the various domains, not only arts of the stage, but we have 2 theater presentations, the Théâtre Populaire d'Acadie, which has given us the honor of doing a presentation, and in January there will be another piece of theater showing all the disciplines are present. The same is true for creative workshops. We have only continued to create and innovate. We have new proposals. Some are going ahead very strongly, like ceramics. We're also having a second independent space in January 2025. André Lapointe is going to be offering for the very first time sculpture in a workshop that had been designed for this, but which had never really been a place for sculpting. At the beginning of the year, this person has come for a 3-month artistic residency. We're calling on creators and others. What can I tell you? Arts are important for all members of the community, for all human beings, and it allows us to have social and economic outpourings and put the emphasis on the contribution to the national product with regard to attraction, be it businesses or tourists, cultural tourism, artistic tourism. So I think that, and I hope that you will continue to support us and to increase the help to us. Thank you. Thank you very much to both of you, well, all 3 of you. I don't want to forget your other colleague. Any questions by members of council? Councillor Thibodeau. Yes, I have a quick question. On the activity report, I tried to click on it, it didn't work. Could you send it to me? Could you email that to me? We'll send you the link by email. Thank you. And thank you very much for this presentation, and especially for the work that you're doing to develop your mission and your vision for this CACD. It fills a need for the community, and you do the work brilliantly. Thank you. Councillor Turgeon-Roy. Thank you. I have to speak. I became involved with the Arts Center. Your worship, you came to see me and asked for my help 8 years ago, and I'm still on the board of directors. So wow, what a difference. You really have the wind in your sails. I'm inviting all of you who are here tonight and who are listening to go and visit the center, because it's a beehive of activity. Even sometimes I think we should, push the walls outward, because all kinds of things are happening there. Congratulations and thank you, Amount, for your being involved And thank you, Séverine, for being there. You're always there. You support your team very well. And so as long as I'm here in this chair, and even if eventually I'm no longer at the Art Center, you will be able to count on my support always. And the fact that you have so much wind in your sails, that it's even more encouraging to continue to support you. So congratulations for all that you do, and you really are the heart of our city center. Thank you. I want to say how the board members are so engaged. You know, once we came out, I said for the first time, 3 committees, everyone was involved. You know, it's motivating and people have this competency and they're ready to work. So it's great to be there and to continue to move things forward. Thank you. Thank you all. Councillor Le Boutillier? No? Okay. Thank you once again for your presentation. And don't give up. Now let's talk about books. With our friends from the Dieppe Public Library.
Madame Guérette et amis.
Ms. Guérette and friends.
Bonsoir et bienvenue.
Good evening and welcome. We're here for congratulations to all and for the community as well. Good evening, Your Worship, councillors, and city management. I'm Hélène Guérette, and this evening I speak to you on behalf of the Public Library Commission of New-Brunswick. And this presentation should take about 10 minutes. So this presentation this evening will give you an yearly update of our activities, which are held at the library, and the important role it plays in community. May I say that I would like to come back to the provincial office of the public libraries. Brunswick Public Libraries is in Fredericton, has some 60 libraries as members, and has partnerships with municipalities, which are found in the Brunswick Libraries Act. That Dieppe libraries has been around. Do you know what year it was launched? 1960. So this allows us to provide the services and give fair access to programs for all members of our community.
Cette diapo brosse un portrait des statistiques étalées d'avril 23 à mars 24.
So this is from 2023 to 2024, and that'll be the same for all statistics that you'll see. So when we compared to 2022, 2023, we've gained almost 2,100 more people more. And the number of borrowers is around 14,346. So if we estimate the population of Dieppe, what this means is that almost 50% of our population have a library card. So in addition, we also had 60,000 visitors, which is a 50% increase compared to the previous period. So, good problems. So the 6 members or 6 employees, we have 6 employees. Now we've had some staff turnover in the recent years, but the current team is experienced and provides quality service with and are very generous. So Madame Karine Bourgeois is the director, and she oversees the library for our community. So thank you to all our staff who do such a great job.
À vrai dire, ce sont les employés de la
So,
bibliothèque.
and it's the library staff who are the best place to understand the needs of the community. And so here are some of the solutions that staff have presented. So we have 4 public computers. So it's important to have access to a computer and to be able to use internet. So we have a printer and a photocopier as well, and our staff provide a lot of help with those devices. We also work with newcomers. So we are also a center where language learning takes place. New Brunswick libraries have been offering free access to the Rosetta Stone for a number of years. It's a language learning tool. And the library is proud to announce that conversational circles have begun in French and English. And this is a new initiative since the month of, since October. Another success that I'd like to point out is that we participated in the distribution of cultural passes at Resurgo, the Acadian Museum, Hopewell Rocks, and the Beaverbrook Art Gallery. Now, of all the libraries in the province, the Dieppe Library is the one that delivered or that distributed the largest number of cultural passes in 2023. Now, beyond the provincial programs that we deliver to residents, our library also offers its own local free programming. So we were able to offer story time and various conferences. And the Dieppe Library has the largest number of story times and conferences in the province. So we're pretty proud of that. And we also have the Book Lovers Winter Ball. So we have that. We had over 150 people participate in that event. Now, there is a high demand for partnerships with the city of Dieppe. So we help welcome new families. We help them navigate the services and recreational office amenities of the city. We help with the Francisization efforts as well by offering training in French to people of all ages. We participate in the book fair. Perhaps we could establish a partnership with the Art Center. And we also invite authors to come and give talks. It's important to point out that the staff have difficulty managing all the requests that we get. So we're hoping to add staff. So for example, our current spaces are not sufficient to meet all the requests for meeting space.
Au cours des dernières années,
in recent years, our services have evolved to meet the needs of our growing community. However, our basic services are still highlighted. In 2022-23, many thousand items were loaned, and we saw an increase of a huge increase in the number of items that we lend. and to make our services more accessible and user-friendly, we've completely eliminated late fees on borrowing of our items.
Par maintes occasions, les employés de la bibliothèque travaillent
Library staff
pour faire connaître les services de la bibliothèque dans la communauté.
do promotional work within the community as well. So we did a tour of municipal schools to promote our summer reading clubs, for example, and we promote local activities through our website as well. So here's Asma describing an activity of the city of Dieppe. So our staff ratio do not allow us to meet all of the services required and all the requests for services that we receive. We offer a host of services to newcomers, language learning. We offer services to students. We have people coming in from different horizons. So I hope that you enjoyed our presentation and that it made you curious about discovering and promoting the services that our library offer. So rest assured that we will continue to collaborate with our partners to contribute to the development and fulfillment of our community. Well, thank you very much to you as well. Any questions from councillors? Councillor Godbout.
Jamais. On se posait la question en termes de...
We were wondering, in terms of financial contribution, what does the city give? How much do you get from the city of Dieppe? Oh, we weren't supposed to talk about financial things, but no, but I think we're getting, we're getting a good service for the money that we pay, but it's not a monetary contribution. They don't get a monetary contribution from the city. It's an exchange of services. We provide the space, the buildings, and well, it's impressive. What you do is impressive. Your work with newcomers and the franchisation efforts as well. So congratulations. Well, the formula is complicated. So their employees, their books, their salaries are paid by the province, whereas the location of the facility itself belongs to the city. So, and a lot depends on what the city wants to get from its library. So, I'm often at City Hall. That comes with the job, but I'm always surprised by the number of people and then the constant traffic in and out of the library. It's really incredible. So I congratulate you for that. I went a few weeks ago. There was a special activity for someone with mental difficulties, and it was a huge success. It was a great participation, a great turnout. Oh, I see you want to. Oh, that was the launch of works of art, I think, for the Canadian Mental Health Association. So and the works will be there for the rest of the month. But that's something that we can offer more of. But that's offered in the library during business hours. But if we had more space and more opportunities, we could do more. All right, thank you. Mr. Girard. Richard, sorry. Here I could, I may not be sitting in the right place. I just wanted to add that, you know, we have a role to play with the province. We need to communicate the growing needs of the municipality. We don't have the same open hours as the city, as the library in Moncton. You know, with all these new activities that our library is undertaking, you know, libraries today are not just about books. They're about so much more than that. So I think we have a good communication, but the province is going to have to come as well to see, can we extend the hours, the library hours? And that doesn't mean that, you know, that the library will be open 7 days a week, but, or that the staff will work there, management will work there 7 days a week, but. Well, we could, you know, we want to rethink our spaces. We want to add shelving. We would like to have a lot more computers. There's a lot of demand for that, but we only have 4 computers right now. So, all right, I don't see any other questions. So thank you again. Thank you for your presentation. Have a good evening. I hope that all of us will be happy this evening. We're impatient for the election results. All right, thank you and have a nice evening.